principle, which I believe it is, that the PCR test is not fit for purpose, then the whole house of cards is going to fall down.
So, Joe, you're a business lawyer. What motivated you to get involved in this particular campaign?
Well, I'm a business owner as well as a business lawyer. I've worked with hundreds of small businesses, SMEs, and they were the ones at the beginning of March or February, March that seemed to be the ones hardest hit. They were the ones who had to either put people on furlough or shut their premises, or they were prevented from earning a living often. And there were a number of people, I believe it was somewhere between 3 million and 5 million, that weren't able to claim any furlough at all. And therefore, for what effectively could have been for 9 months, they didn't have any money. So it was the pinch, really. I could see the pain. I was a business owner myself, but I worked with so many of these individuals, and I could see that they were in pain quite early. And it felt important because not all of them had the opportunity or had the voice to say something. And it felt that it was important, a kind of moral duty, if you like, as a lawyer, to say something.
The government has been asked to provide a cost-benefit analysis, but really at the heart of this issue is the cost, the individual pain, the hurt being suffered by people. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have seen from the submissions you've received to date in terms of that pain?
It feels as though, for the whole of the human race, but certainly for the UK population, COVID trumps all. And that means that people's individual rights are being removed, if not completely diminished. Someone who was refused treatment, and we've all heard of these stories. These aren't just stories that are coming to us. We've heard about them in the news. We've seen them on social media. People protesting and being arrested for protesting a fundamental human right. Children being forced to wear masks or sit in the freezing cold in the middle of winter with the windows open with blankets around them. I mean, some of the suffering isn't even yet known. Like, the mental health aspect to this is probably off the chart. We will see. We're working with psychologists who are saying that this is one of the biggest issues here is a lot of the mental health. 42,000 people homeless as a result. People losing their jobs, and maybe not now. Maybe the government package can cover us for some period of time, but not for long. And that causes suffering just beyond belief. What is strange to me is how few people who would usually look to, I'm a business lawyer and that's where my focus is, but how few people would really look to the individual suffering, and that suffering is acute. And I don't think we yet know what the long-term effects of that are. So yeah, for me, I want to make sure that people have the voice, they have somewhere they can go, because there's nothing more frustrating than feeling as though you're suffering and you can't tell anybody about it. You can't share it with anybody and no one can do anything about it, because that's where we are. We are in an environment where the courts at this moment in time, from a judicial review perspective, has said coronavirus trumps all. The hospitals are saying coronavirus trumps all. People are saying you do not have the right to say no to certain treatment because coronavirus trumps all. And that is going to be an immeasurable impact politically, socially, and individually.
How big a legal team do you think you'll need? I know that you have international connections and an international network well developed, but how big a team do you think you'll need here in the UK?
For me, at the moment where we're at, we've got an international group of lawyers. We've got a UK-based group of lawyers. Each in every country, there are lawyers who are looking at the same thing, because we are in a really unusual situation in that many of us around the world are going through the same thing as a result of the same test. The PCR test is being used worldwide. And so we have lawyers in Germany, California, Canada, Italy, who are all sharing information, all sharing data, all sharing articles in different languages, translating them for each other. So for me, that could, in each country, really that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a global set of lawyers that are working in each country to support businesses in their country. And so we've all been sharing information and data around cases that are working, cases that have worked around the world, and also kind of allowing the data to be shared, the information to be shared, the stories to be shared, but also to work out the best strategy and moving forward. As I said, timing's everything, and we want to make sure we get this right.
Now, you mentioned PCR testing and the fact that testing is the kind of cornerstone of this, isn't it? You know, if we pull out the testing, the whole edifice falls down. Why is the PCR test such a big deal?
I think, again, this comes from a worldwide network of lawyers considering the PCR test to be not fit for purpose, would be the word that I would use. Inappropriate for where we are on the curve. And that's not to say that it wasn't appropriate once, but certainly the scientists that we're working with, the experts that within our team, are strongly indicating that that this pandemic has long been over. And even if that wasn't the case, because I don't want to preempt the situation, I don't want to preempt whether that's correct or not. But for me, asking the question, it's important that when preeminent people who have sophisticated arguments are shut down and not listened to, that worries me then. That's a trigger point for me, particularly from a freedom of speech perspective, particularly from a democracy perspective.
And particularly because the government keeps saying that it's following the evidence, but it seems to me they're only looking at one bucket of evidence.
I think they're following the fear, not the evidence, not the science. And of course, as many people tell me about my arguments, oh, well, there's lots of different views on the science and what the science is. I totally take that. Then we must be listening to all sides. We must be listening to a spectrum of individuals. And that's my concern, is that that's not what is happening here. And that's what makes me believe that this, when it becomes known globally, when it becomes an accepted principle, which I believe it is, that the PCR test is not fit for purpose, then the whole house of cards is going to fall down.
Now, there have been other attempts to take legal action against the government, some of which have been less successful or more successful than others. The Simon Dolan case is well known. Why do you think this one will succeed when others haven't?
What we're looking at are the losses incurred by each of these businesses, each of these individuals, in fact, because even though you might look at a business and think, oh, that's a business, that's someone's livelihood, that's somebody as an individual, they often are looking after their family. So it's very much these individuals have been wronged, have been harmed. And the question will be, and has been for the last few months whilst we've been looking at that, where does the responsibility lie for that? And I guess that's what's raised this campaign, really. We believe that it's through these PCR tests that are incorrect.
I know you've already had hundreds of responses from pcrclaims.co.uk. What can individuals expect from here on?
Everybody can have their day in court. What we want to make sure is that that is appropriate and that it is put together in a way that has all of the evidence together and that has the public interest as well. These are individuals who have had their whole lives shattered as a result of this pandemic and seem to be forgotten, really, forgotten by the media. So for me, I really want for those individuals to have an option. And what we're aiming to do here is gather evidence, get the evidence now, because there's no point in 2 years' time looking back and thinking, oh, if only I'd remembered to get my doctor's report, or if only I'd spoken to my accountant at the time, if only I had done X, Y, and Z, captured all of that data. So our team is gathering evidence, but also individuals who have suffered losses are also need to gather their evidence, and we want to hear from them.
Now, the government claims that public opinion is on their side. Do you think we will, as a result of gathering this evidence, get to a tipping point where suddenly the public is made aware that there are thousands of people who are suffering very, very gravely as a result of the COVID policy?
The phrase that comes to my mind is bubble. It's the phrase that's been used by the government to talk about you're all in your own bubble. And I think that that's not just been a physical bubble, but also a mental bubble. I think we're all in these little bubbles of our own world, and we're just getting by ourselves. For me, this is an opportunity for people to be heard, for their feelings to be heard. And I've been waiting for a tipping point since March, to be honest. So I fingers crossed hope that this gets people realizing that when we're in our own bubbles, we can't see other people's experience. And many people at this moment in time aren't, because of furlough and other things that are happening, aren't able to see everybody else's pain, aren't able to see the people that are seriously suffering as a result.
My final question, Joe, is the key message that you want to say to those people who are perhaps a little bit reticent about providing some feedback, providing a submission through the website. What message would you send out to them?
I would say if they're feeling reticent, you've got nothing to lose but a bit of time. And actually, the time it may take you now is well worth it to document what is happening. Now, you might say, but I've got no interest in going to court. I don't want to do anything. No problem. There's no obligation. But you lose nothing in documenting your experience. The second thing is, I feel that it's really important for everybody's story to be heard. It doesn't have to be a legal case, but your pain is not being heard yet. We need to understand that, because there are many people around the world that are not seeing what you're going through, that are not hearing your stories. And who knows why that may be, but I think that's why it's important to share. So I would say share what you can, what you feel able to. And if you don't feel able to share, document it anyway. Put it down in writing, and at least then you can share it at a later date. We'll be here.
Joe, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.